So our task this week is to roll into our GUI application the ability to write to a file. Now, like we talked about in the lecture, doing that is something isn't necessarily unique to a GUI. We could have a batch application we want to write this stuff to. We could have a web application we want to write this stuff to a file. There's all sorts of different things. Mobile phone app, who knows, web services. So how do we take this and make it reusable? How do we make this so it's bundled up and we don't have to put these lines of writing and opening files and managing files all into one piece? So we're going to build that before we go to the GUI application. We're going to build that separately over here. I'm going to go through and write a new Java class. And this is going to be my person, we'll call it file storage, for lack of a better term. All right, so the person file storage is just a class I'm making up. There's actually some patterns we'll talk about later on. We'll give it a little bit better name, but this is good enough for now. So what do I want this class to do? I want a public method, doesn't have to return anything, that writes write person inside of there. And how do I know what data a person has? Well, we have an object for that. So we can pass in the person object. So essentially, we'll come back and fill this in here in a second. Essentially, what I want to have happen is this person that's coming up here, I want to have a person file storage object. We'll call it PFS for lack of anything else. Oops, sorry. And what I want to do is PFS dot write person P. And this is what I want my application to do. Get a person, write it out there. Oops, sorry, I need to put this at the end. All right, so for my component now, this is going to be right in the person. I want all of this code down here essentially to be moved over to my file. So I'm going to copy this stuff right here. This is called refactoring, this process, by the way. What I did was just write some code, got it working. And I realized, you know what, this would be better inside of a component. So I'm going to take it, I'm going to copy it, Control-C, cut it, Control-X there, come over here, and Control-V, paste it. And then you can see when I paste it, it's going to ask me, do I want to import these things? Sure, that's fine, that looks good. And then everything blows up. Nothing compiles anymore because I'm not handling the exception properly. So in this solution, it's okay. If I can't write to the file, I don't know what to do because I'm just a component that's job is to hide these lines of code. So in this case, I absolutely want to Alt-Enter and throw the exception. And that's totally fine. When I write a person, if there's a problem, it goes from there. Now, I want to start simple. I want to stay simple here for the moment. I'm going to take this person file storage, move all the lines of code inside of there, and move along from there. So leave it there, and I'm going to come back to here. I'm just going to test this as it is. So if I run the history guy here, you can see it runs, and nothing went wrong, and it wrote Anthony Lowe again back here, which is where I left it, from last time. So this little component right here is ready to go. This guy can be used and sent along. Now there's a few minor concern issues with this component. Okay, I can only write to a file called person.txt. That's a limitation. We can fix that. I have to open the file and close the file all the time together, and I must append it every single time. It's a limitation. It's not necessarily a bad limitation. It might be something that, hey, this application must write to a file called person.txt. It must append every time. It might be the exact way you want it to be written. It's just not as flexible as it can be. So we can come back and add some flexibility, but for the moment, let's set that to the side. We'll probably deal with that later on. It's not super important that it is flexible at the moment. So we'll talk about it. But I just want to point out the fact that copying and pasting lines is not always the end-all, be-all. I'm finished with my refactoring. The thing I want to do here in a second is roll this into our GUI application. Okay, so this is still a main application. It's not all ready to go, but the good news is now we've essentially tested this out. I mean, you can test it some more if you want to. You can put different names, different ages. We've already tested out those lines of code, so I'm pretty much sure they work. This is old. not old, this is older Anthony Lowe. Let's say, so I can run this again. I can run all the designations you want to, and you can see, there you go, older Anthony Lowe showing up. So the idea behind this is my component is built separately. I can write things to this, I can test things, I can put different ages, different names, different first names, different last names. That's what I'm doing here. And then, once I'm happy with this component, I can go and integrate it with the other piece. And that's what we're going to do next time.